Well, a very sensitive diplomatic visit from Germany's foreign minister to Israel today, with Heiko Maas set to touch down shortly to meet with high-ranking officials, including his counterpart Gabi Ashkenazi and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, regarding the extremely controversial topic of annexing parts of the West Bank. Now, Maas is expected to try and persuade Israel's leaders not to go through with the process slated for July 1st, saying that it would harm Israel's relations with Germany and the European Union. Now, this after the United States has urged Israel to hold off annexation plans, which the White House laid out in its controversial so-called peace plan between Israel and Palestinians. And let's go live now to our correspondent, Owen Alterman, who is standing by for us this morning in Jerusalem. Owen, hello again. We are expecting this visit from Maas in the next couple of hours. Tell me, just how far can he really go in persuading Israel's leadership to scrap these annexation plans?
Well, Sarah, you're absolutely right. Heiko Maas scheduled to be here for his first meeting of the day with Israel's Foreign Minister Gabi Ashkenazi at 11 o'clock local time. That's in less than an hour from now. They'll do a quick photo op, head off for their meeting, and then afterwards hold a press conference, which is set to include questions from reporters. So we're very, very much looking forward to that. That's scheduled to happen at 12 o'clock local time in just about 2 hours. He'll then meet with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, with Defense Minister and alternate Prime Minister Benny Gantz, before heading off to Jordan to meet with the Jordanian foreign minister and hold a teleconference with the prime minister from the Palestinian Authority. Again, not being able to visit Ramallah in person because of restrictions in the coronavirus pandemic. And then after a whirlwind visit to this part of the world, head right back to Germany. But Sarah, look, he will want to convince his Israeli interlocutors to hold off and really to nix this entire annexation plan. And the reality is he will be knocking in large part on an open door. This plan has come under so much criticism from so many directions over the past few weeks that it really seems a bit imperiled. Of course, criticism from the international community, which has not moved at all, and from the Arab world, including Israel's important partners in the Arab world in Jordan and in Egypt. That's one issue. The second, the hesitation from the Trump administration because of the problems in the United States and the pandemic, the economic crisis, and of course the protests and U.S. concerns about potential fallout. There simply hasn't been the kind of mapping of what the borders would be and which lands would be annexed for the annexation to go forward, at least not on the July 1st target date. That's the other part of the opposition. And the third, and maybe most important for Prime Minister Netanyahu, opposition, maybe surprisingly, from within the Israeli right. Sarah, large parts of Israel's settlement movement has come out against the annexation of settlements, which may surprise some observers, but their argument is that they're concerned that in exchange for the annexation, they would have to pay a price that they don't want to pay, which is recognition of the Trump peace plan, including the establishment of a Palestinian state. Sarah, they say that they would rather have the status quo. Given all of that, of course, Heiko Maas will want to convince his Israeli interlocutors not to go forward with the plan. The plan is in potential trouble anyway.
Okay, Owen, stay with me. And the Israeli Supreme Court has delivered an impactful and timely decision following 3 years of debate, striking down the so-called 2017 regulation law, which gave Israel the ability to take over private Palestinian land in the West Bank in cases where settlers build there in good faith. Now, in an 8-1 ruling, the judges wrote that the law infringes on property rights and equality for Palestinian residents and places an overt preference for the interests of Israeli settlers over Palestinian residents. And Owen, tell me, just how unusual is this ruling? What do you make of it?
Well, Sarah, it was expected. I mean, first to set the stage, Israel, of course, has built hundreds of settlements in the West Bank, and from the perspective of the international community and almost all international legal scholars, it's all illegal. Doesn't matter who owned the land, what the history of the land was. If it's across that 1967 border or armistice line, it is, from the international perspective, illegal. That said, Israeli law does draw a distinction between land that is owned by Palestinians versus land that is not owned by Palestinians, and on land that is owned by Palestinians, Israeli law has not allowed settlements to be built. That said, over the course of the decades, Israeli homes were built on land owned by Palestinians for a number of reasons, including actions by government authorities themselves. And as you mentioned, some of this was built in good faith, at least from the perspective of those building the homes, that they didn't realize or didn't know or knew but understood it was legal to build on that land. So the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, passes a law in 2017 saying that homes built on that land, even though it was built on Palestinian land, that those homes should be allowed to stay and not be subject to potential demolition. Obviously, a very, very controversial law. Critics have said that this law allows the land to be stolen, land owned by someone, but essentially not available for their use because someone else has built a home on it. And Israel's Supreme Court, maybe unsurprisingly, now striking it down after having frozen the law before. Sarah, there's an interesting connection between this whole issue and the question of annexation. If Israel goes forward with annexation, it may well be that it changes the legal status and this law wouldn't need to be passed. And even though the Supreme Court has struck it down, the homes could stay for other legal reasons and based on other legal theories.
Owen Altman there in Jerusalem. Thank you for breaking that down. Now, as the Israeli leadership continues to push forward with its plans to annex parts of the West Bank, our Middle East correspondent Emily Rose examines what kind of impact this move could have on relations between Israel and Jordan.
Defense Minister Benny Gantz may try his hand at shuttle diplomacy. Arabic media is reporting the newly minted defense minister may pay a visit to Jordan in order to smooth over tensions with the Hashemite kingdom caused by Israel's intention to annex parts of the West Bank and the Jordan Valley. Jordanian officials have warned recently that any unilateral moves by Israel could put the already strained relationship even more on the rocks. And experts worry about the possibility of a gloomier future.
The relationship between Israel and Jordan is essential to the welfare and to the security of both countries and to the region as a whole. There are a lot of issues at stake here.
Some 60% of Jordanians are of Palestinian descent, and the king could face backlash from inside the kingdom if Israel goes through with the plan. Jordan also has historic ties to the West Bank. It was a formal part of the kingdom until captured by Israel in 1967. Recent months have seen tensions heighten between the two sides as Jordan ended the lease to Israel on 2 areas of land that were meant to symbolize peace between the two sides. Some say the king could even take unilateral steps himself, like withdrawing the Jordanian ambassador to Israel or even tearing up the peace treaty.
Israel has had to place very little of its military on the border with Jordan because of the peace treaty with Israel. In fact, under the peace treaty arrangements, Jordan is committed to make sure that no enemy to Israel can cross through Jordanian territory. So it means that actually Jordan, in the bigger picture, is making sure that any enemies to Israel are staying out of its borders.
While the kingdom relies heavily on financial support from the U.S. and the tourism industry, which has taken a hit due to the COVID-19 crisis, the pressure to take action against unilateral annexation may weigh heavily on the king. Emily Rose, I-24 News.